Welcome back to the Artist Rendezvous. My name is Samantha Potenhauer, and today I'm sitting with Kevin Fishner, owner and founder of Radius Butcher and Grocery. I cannot emphasize enough how much I love this place. I am definitely a super fan, and I'm a super fan because it is everything I'd ever want in a grocery store. It is regenerative. It is high integrity food. It is the highest quality from good farms, from local places. It supports the community, and it is great for my health. This is a special conversation because we're talking about what this is and why this is an important model for Austin and across the country, but also how Kevin made the hop from tech into this work, the why behind it, his own journey with health, his really, I find, empowering perspective on health and wellness and how to view it as a place of joy. And then how this business works, how it works from a practical perspective, the vision behind it, the question of cost when it comes to food, and all the parts about bringing an idea to life. So Kevin, welcome to the Artist Rendezvous.
Thank you very much.
I'm so happy to have you here. So I don't know if you know this, but maybe you do because I've been emailing you since before Radius opened, but I am a super fan. Someone told me I was on a date once. It was like a third or fourth date, and they're like, "You've mentioned it 15 times in the course of 3 dates." I just really love it, and for a lot of reasons. But before we get into all of those reasons, would you explain a little bit more about what this concept is?
Sure. Radius is a farmer's market that's open every day. So we bring what I think is the best of farmers markets, which is local sourcing and connection with the farmer, and combine that with the convenience of a grocery store. So we are open every single day. We also offer dry goods curated from around the world, the cleanest possible options. So it can actually be a one-stop shop for what you need to cook for dinner.
So if somebody was going to a regular grocery store, even one that's maybe more health-minded like Sprouts or Whole Foods, is that not like a farmer's market every day?
I think the big difference is they have global supply chains, so they're not necessarily supporting the local farmers, especially for Whole Foods and Sprouts. They have locations all across the United States, so it's not practical for them to source from Central Texas farmers. They do source some. I don't want to make it seem like it's completely devoid of local products, but when they buy broccoli, it's coming from different places at different times of the year because it's seasonal in different places. I think that's a big aspect of it is if it's not in season, it's not going to be at Radius, which even for myself, that was a bit of a learning curve. But now it makes cooking so much easier because you're like, well, there's bok choy in season, so I'm going to design a dish around bok choy. Versus when you go into a grocery store, you're always going to have broccoli, you're always going to have zucchini. You always have these staples, but then you also don't get some of the more unique products that we would have. So it's more creative as a result.
Yeah. And you mentioned regenerative farm, if you go into Radius or if you get on their newsletter, which is cool, you'll see that you all will do third-party testing. You'll talk about things like PFAS, forever chemicals in your foods.
Yeah.
You are specific about the ingredients that you have or don't have, more so than any large grocery store that I've ever been into. Mm-hmm. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Well, it's interesting because a place like Whole Foods is actually way more specific about what they don't include. So I think they have like a list of 300 ingredients. And maybe one day we'll do that. But for now, our guiding principles are simpler. Like we aim to source food that has the most nutrient density as possible and the least amount of toxins. So as an example, and you alluded to this, we tested our beef for plastic residues. There's a really interesting study called Plastic List by this person in San Francisco who tested all of the food that his family was eating. A lot of it was coming from Whole Foods. And it tested really high in plastics, plastic analytes. And one that stuck out to me was the Whole Foods ribeye. Tested very positive for bisophenols and phthalates.
And this study went viral online. I saw it through a variety of Instagram accounts.
Yeah. And it took them a lot of time. Obviously, you just see the results, but they put in a lot of research and effort. So really commend them on that. So we wanted to test our beef in comparison. And I think we came back with much lower plastic levels, both in terms of the number of analytes. If I'm remembering correctly, I think Whole Foods came back with 8 analytes tested positive. We came back with 3. Each of their analytes were anywhere from 3 to 10 times higher than ours. And in doing research to figure out why the levels are so different, the large-scale meat processors that a global or a national grocery store will use, there's a kill step in the processing plant, which is required by law, and it's good. And the carcass gets sprayed with a high acidic compound to reduce any pathogens that might be on the surface. So that is good and good for our health, or protective for our health. It's not necessarily good for our health, but it's a reasonable risk mitigation tactic. But when you spray a carcass with an acidic disinfectant and then wrap it in shrink wrap plastic, the acid will start to break down the plastic and leaches into the meat. So versus the beef that we get is processed at a very small processor. It's actually on the same farm that we get our beef from. And we've asked them to never shrink wrap. They wrap them in basically like very loose plastic bags. So the plastic contacts the surface of the meat a lot less. The carcasses are only in it during transport, so it's about an hour and a half. So the plastic exposure is a lot less as a result. And there's a bunch of other testing that we'll do. I'm not sure if you saw, but Brian Johnson was saying that they're testing produce for pesticide levels, and organic has the equivalent level of pesticides as conventional. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
So we're going to test our produce, which is all either organic or regenerative, and then see how that compares to conventional from other grocery stores. So on that side, that's the reducing toxin exposure as much as possible. And we'll also start doing nutrient density testing as well.
Can you explain what regenerative farming means for people who aren't familiar with that term?
Yeah, it's there are regenerative certifications. There's multiple of them. And they're not as checklist oriented as an organic certification would be. And I'm saying that because regenerative is open to interpretations a little bit. So I'm going to share what I believe in, at least when it comes to regenerative. There's 2 parts that are important to me. The first is soil health. So regenerative farming really focuses on improving the soil microbiome so that the healthy bacteria in the soil can present nutrients to the plants or the grass that's growing on it. And the healthier that microbiome, the more nutrients go to the plants or to the grass. And then if you have animals eating that grass, the more nutrients go to them. Or if we're eating the grass, aka vegetables, then more nutrients go to us. So there's a bunch of practices that improve soil health on the livestock farming side. It's predominantly intensive rotational grazing. So instead of having your livestock, certainly not in a feedlot, but on pasture, instead of having them spread across many thousands of acres, you keep them focused on maybe 100 acres at a time, and then you rotate so that way the pasture gets more activity on it. And it's intended to mimic the traditional migration patterns that you would have, because like bison example in the United States would migrate across the country based on the season and have really intensive grazing. And that intensive grazing fertilizes the soil, and then when you move the animals off it, it gives the grass and the soil more time to regenerate. So that's on the livestock side. On the produce farming side, it's kind of similar, where instead of in conventional farming, like what you would get at Whole Foods as an example, you buy from a spinach farmer. Like they're just producing tons of spinach. That's their thing. Versus we don't have any farmers that are spinach farmers. They're farmers, and they rotate their crops based on what's in season, and they'll use cover crops to make sure that the soil can get the nutrients it needs. So,
which is great for soil health. It's great for increasing the nutrients of the food.
Yes, exactly.
It's better for local water quality.
That's a really good point, that the healthier the soil is, the more water retention it can hold too. So especially in Texas, we get massive downpours. So you really want the soil to be able to absorb that versus running off and taking the topsoil with it.
Because when it runs off, it takes the topsoil, which is very nutrient rich, but it also takes anything else in the soil like nitrogen and phosphorus and puts that into the water, which can create water quality issues.
Yes, definitely. So that's the first aspect of regenerative that's important to me, is all about soil health. And the second is trying to build closed systems. So you were alluding to nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium can run off. Ideally, if you, especially in a livestock, a system with livestock, those animals are fertilizing the soil and you're getting those key compounds from the animals rather than buying fertilizer from either synthetic or even organic fertilizer. So in theory, an ideal regenerative farm would not require any external inputs, whether that would be organic or synthetic fertilizer, organic or synthetic pesticides. I think this is an area I want to do more research in, but I certainly believe organic pesticides are better than conventional pesticides. But the organic pesticides still basically make caterpillars blow up. So I don't know if that's something that you necessarily want to be eating either. Ideally, you would have farming practices that reduce the ability for pests to live in that ecosystem.
Which, by the way, exists. Some people don't realize that, but there are lots of practices that you can do, even very simple ones of planting certain plants next to each other,
Exactly.
that can reduce the pesticides and make you not need them.
Exactly. And crop rotations help with that a lot.
But they're more time intensive. They're less efficient. It makes it a lot harder for farms of massive scale.
Very difficult for large farms to do that. Yeah. So we look for farms that have no spray practices, regardless of whether it's organic or synthetic. And it's amazing to be able to, you can taste the difference too, which is the most magical part about it. So I do focus a lot on maximizing nutrients and minimizing toxins, but also at the end of the day, it's about, does the food taste good? Does it bring you joy? And there's a massive difference between eating a regeneratively grown local blackberry and a blackberry that was shipped from Mexico. And you don't know how long it's been in transit, and it's picked before it's actually ripe, so it can survive transit. So yes, I am interested in testing. I think it's worthwhile, but the best test is, does it taste good?
Yeah. So all of these thank you for outlining that. And I know it just really scratches the surface of these questions.
Yeah.
And I encourage people who are really new to this to explore a little bit more
Definitely.
and learn more about the food systems and these practices, because the conventional food system in the U.S. offers a very different product than local regenerative farms do. And there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
But there's so many benefits to to having products come from these local farms, including the taste, including the joy, but also the nutrient difference is huge. And it's something I hear all the time from people. I'll get produce from Radius and people will be like, this is the most gorgeous egg.
Yeah.
Or I've been eating the spring onions a lot recently. They're
really good.
insane.
Yeah,
They're so
it's nuts.
good. I put them on everything.
Yeah.
And you can feel the energy from it. I love the bone broth and the soups, and I gift it to people often, and they'll tell me this soup is so incredibly nourishing because you're a butcher that's snout to tail, so you use the whole animal in making the bone broth. So it's super gelatinous, it's super nutrient rich, and then all the other products that go into these soups are really, really, really high quality.
Yeah, it's funny in many ways. Radius is a new model, but it's just old concepts and making it more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bone broths are next level good.
The bone broths are crazy. They're so good.
It's a really good comparison too, because the bone broth that you would get from a grocery store won't, especially the ones that are not. One of my friends owns a bone broth company, so I try not to be. He is the best bone broth out there, no doubt. And it's tough though, because to have shelf-stable bone broth, you can't have fat in the package. So versus ours, it's Jell-O basically.
Yeah, which is, to me, like by definition, what bone broth is meant to be.
Yeah.
Also, bone broth is super laborious to make on your own. Like, it takes like 3 days.
Yeah. Versus we have a 40-gallon kettle, so it makes it a lot easier.
It makes it so, it's fantastic. The one last thing I'll say on there, and I just want to weigh in with my perspective about why I go there. It's beautiful, and we'll get to that in a moment. I don't have to do the research and look through all the labels as much. I have a lot of food specifications for health, so I look for that, but I'm not looking through to see if there's red dye or things that I am concerned about for my health, and you don't have to have that question. I personally am a really big believer that animals don't belong in factory farms and CAFO farms. And it's interesting to talk about because it's something where it's made me a lot more financially accessible, and I never want to make somebody feel like I'm putting them down for financial choices.
Yeah.
Because it is more expensive to buy meat that isn't made in factory farms.
Yeah.
But if you're not aware of what goes on in those farms, it's worth looking up, even though it's hard to stomach. And ever since I learned about them when I was like 18 in college, I was an environmental studies major, so I took agriculture classes, and I realized what happened. It's taken this long probably to learn how to not have meat like that at the center of every meal and then to make the transition. But it's just really important to me that the animals that I eat aren't tortured and aren't in these like horrible conditions that I would never wish on any living being. And I love that you go there and it tells you the farm that it came from and what they ate. And there's just a greater trust and the respect and reverence for the whole life cycle and for Earth as a part of the product.
Yeah. It's very important for us to. It's very important to me to have a direct relationship with each of the farmers and visit their farms and understand their practices. And people will ask, like, do you have a checklist when you go to the farm? And yeah, I do have things that I look for. But at the end of the day, you can see what the animals, how they're doing. And it's much different going to a regenerative chicken farm versus going to a warehouse chicken farm. You can see.
Have you ever been inside a warehouse chicken farm? Because you usually can't get access to them.
You can't. Yeah. And that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people who aren't aware, warehouse chicken farms, so you'll basically have chickens where they're often they're so close together they'll never walk or be able to open their wings, and they're illegal to get through. Animal activists will sneak on, and that's where we have videos of these things. A lot of times the animals are really sick because of the conditions, so then they have to have a lot of antibiotics. Organic factory farms, which is pretty much like, this is a super old stat, but it was 10 years ago where it was like 99% of chicken sold in the US was from factory farms, CAFO farms. Now I think the number is higher versus 70% of beef because it's, I think, easier or more practical to have pasture raised beef.
Yeah.
But chicken was really, really hard. So it used to be really hard to find. Like when I first started getting into this, it was hard to find. You could find organic, but organic at pretty much any large box grocery store is going to be from a feed farm for the most part.
Yeah.
And you can correct me if
their feed will be organic.
Yes.
But their lifestyle certainly is not.
Yeah. And there's been improvements made with transparency about the quality and the what the animal enclosures look like, and you can find information about that. But it is nothing that you would ever want a pet to experience.
Yeah.
Or like any animal.
No. Yeah.
Personally, that's how I feel about it. And so it's moved me over time to make the transition into this, which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this before. We although we very much believe in the regenerative sourcing that we practice, I think you'll see in our marketing that we don't spend much time on the alternative. And I think a lot of food system marketing comes from a place of fear rather than a place of joy.
Yeah.
And so, we just try to be kind of food should be fun. Like it should bring you together and taste delicious and be cause for celebration, not something that you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And I've been through health issues, and I certainly understand the perspective of eating from a place of concern. But a big part of why Radius is what it is because it's a celebration more so than um, a worry.
Tell me more about what that translates to or what that can mean, like as far as the experience you're trying to create for people.
Yeah. I think first, just in designing the space, it is a beautiful space. We we sourced a lot of the materials from Texas as well. So the farmers market every day applies to the materials as well. So we have Texas mesquite for all of the millwork, and it's beautiful. The tiles are made from a place in San Antonio, clay tiles, made from a place in San Antonio. So it is a warm, welcoming place. It's not modern, and that was intentional. It's supposed to feel very lived in and familiar. So that's one aspect of designing for joy. Is it does need to be a beautiful, comforting place. The store layout is also designed how I think you should design a seasonal meal. So when you walk in, you're greeted by a front table that has all the peak produce, and you're in our produce section. You see exactly what's in season, and I think that's how you should design a meal. You can see that fennel is here, or we have grapefruits, and we just got avocados this last week. So.
Oh, yeah, I saw those there.
Yeah, high in histamines, though.
Yeah, I can't have them right now. I'm on a special diet, guys.
But yeah, so like it's one of those things where, yes, it's incredible that we can eat avocados every single day of the year. It's a modern miracle.
Uh-huh.
But when you can only eat avocados for 4 weeks out of the year, it becomes more special. Like you're going to treasure the avocado more, and you'll find a lot more creative ways to use it. And then you start to look forward to when it comes back next year. So I think those are things that are joyful. Like we're just getting out of citrus season, and the grapefruits that we got they're insane. Like every time I bit into one, I was like, this is nuts. This is what food should be. And now I'm already looking forward to that coming back in next season in January, February. So those are the moments of joy, and the way we approach hospitality. We have close relationships with so many of our customers that are coming in. So yeah, it's a place where we celebrate practices and celebrate the farmers rather than try to stoke fear.
Which I love, and you feel that. It is so beautiful. People are so warm, and they'll like look out for me. Like, yeah, I've had so many wonderful, lovely communications with people who work at Radius and who are like, have you seen this? Or we have this, like, you should try this. I think you would like it. Yeah. And that's really unique and special. Also, the lighting in there is great. And as a sensitive person, going into large places with a lot of fluorescent lights, it's not an experience I like.
Yeah. It should feel like a kitchen.
Yeah. It feels like that.
Yeah. That was the goal. And our employees are so welcoming. Like Audrey's incredible, Greg, James, Joe.
Love Greg.
Yeah.
Love Audrey.
Yeah. They're so welcoming.
One time Greg put aside these awesome bones for me to make bone broth, and it was like so great. And it said on there, it was like, do not touch them for Sam, because people kept throwing them away.
And you wouldn't get that type of experience at a Whole Foods or something like that. So, and all these places Whole Foods is an incredible business. Without Whole Foods, organic would not have happened in America. And like, I think Walmart is not the largest seller of organic produce in the country. Without Whole Foods, that change wouldn't have happened. So it just takes, I think the hope is the same way Whole Foods pioneered and made organic more accessible to Americans. Radius or other businesses can make regenerative more accessible, and then the prices will come down. So you have to start somewhere.
And it allows people. I'm also a fan of Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And I live there. I actually love it there. But I love Radius more. And not to pit them against each other, because they don't need to be. They serve different purposes, and they have different value propositions, and they have a different role, and they're both are really important in that. And I think to this point of like fear or choosing joy primarily and prioritizing that, the fear and concern is often what gets people paying attention. It's what
Yeah.
got me paying attention. It's why I'm willing to pay double or triple for a singular product.
Yeah.
So it is a part of the conversation and it is a metric, but it's the joy that you stay for.
Yeah.
Like no one stays doing something because of fear. You stay doing it because of joy.
You feel better.
You feel better and it's fun.
Yeah.
And I look forward to like what's going to be in season and it ends up marking your time, just like when you live in a place that's really seasonal and you have flowers blooming for the first time.
Definitely.
I used to live in Vermont and you had these beautiful short summers and you really took advantage of them. And then the fall came and everything changed, and the marking of time using food for that
That's a beautiful
as well.
sentiment. Yeah, I love that.
The thing that Radius gets to offer is it gives you an example of what that joy can look like. And if you don't know it, then you don't know why it might be worth making a part of your life.
Yeah.
And because to me, it's representative of a bigger lifestyle question and change. Like eating seasonally is a lifestyle change. And just being close to your food and having a relationship with your food and with the people that provide your food and grow your food is a different way of conceptualizing this massive part of our life. And so when you start to getting the chance to experiment with it, you get the opportunity to see whether you want to make that change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a big reason why I wanted to start Radius is I wanted my world to feel smaller. And I think your sentiment about eating seasonally it marks the passage of time. I think, at least for me, when I was working in tech before, I kind of got a little bit lost in the largeness. Like you're selling products to millions of people. The companies are large. You're inside more often. Versus with Radius, it makes life more local. And I use the term smaller because it makes sense to me, but it's really about those local connections and understanding that the passage of time rather than sitting inside in the same air-conditioned space, whether it's through the changing of the seasons outside or the changing of what produce is available. It's fun to be more tethered to the specific place that you live versus a lot of the systems that we live in might kind of protect you from it. I think probably the number one selling product in Whole Foods, if I had to guess, would probably be bananas. It's like, I don't know. It's just so not anywhere in America is not connected to bananas.
Yeah.
Versus being here in Texas, you get exposed to products that are from the land. So, yeah.
And just to clarify that, there's significance in the name Radius.
Yeah. It's all about reducing your sourcing radius and keeping, reducing your sourcing radius for food, but also kind of reducing your life radius in a way too.
So let's go into this, why you created this.
Sure.
And why this is important. What were you doing before?
I worked in tech. I lived in San Francisco for a while, and I moved to Austin to be with my wife. We were doing long distance dating, and
what's her name?
Her name's Maytal.
Hi.
Yeah. So it was time, and it was an exciting change. And then I took probably 18 to 24 months off after that chapter, and was spending a lot of time cooking at home and trying to become like an above average home chef. And I was going to grocery stores and going to the farmer's market, and both weren't very satisfying. I loved the cooking process, but kind of grew to really dislike the shopping process.
What parts about it?
Yeah, on the farmer's market side, just that at least the better ones in Austin are only open one day a week, which is it's inconvenient. It kind of sucks. And
it's like in the morning usually. It's like one part of the day.
Yeah, exactly. It's a limited window. So but I love the aspect of farmers markets where you're talking with the farmers and understanding their practices and supporting their businesses directly. But the schedule was difficult, and also, at least in the Austin farmers markets, they're not very produce oriented. So it was something I was really missing, especially like I like to design dishes around whatever produce is in season, and that was becoming difficult. And there's almost no fruit at least the farmers markets I was going to. So um, there are beautiful parts of farmers market, and there were parts that I thought were missing. And then on the grocery store side, of course, you have the convenience, and you could get whatever you possibly would need to cook a meal. So I wanted to combine those two things, have the localism and abundance and farmer connection of a farmer's market with the convenience and assortment that a grocery store would have. And even though Radius is much smaller than what Whole Foods is, we have basically the same assortment options. We certainly have fewer choices per category. So we might have one ketchup instead of 12 ketchups. But anything that you would be able to get at Whole Foods, we try to be able to provide at Radius, the cleanest, best version of it. So that was the first thing, is trying to solve my own problem of wanting a better grocery shopping experience. The second reason is I've been through my own health challenges. I've had Lyme disease twice. The first when I was a little kid, and the second time when I was in my mid to late 20s when I was living in San Francisco. And I had to really dramatically change my diet and lifestyle. And I became very attuned to how food made my body feel, both in terms of categories of food. So I stopped eating gluten, I stopped eating dairy, as well as just quality within the same food. So being able to tell whether like broccoli was well harvested or well grown versus mass produced. So I became much more attuned with how I felt and how food made me feel. And I wanted a place where I could trust what was there, and get to a place of joy rather than a place of fear. And then the third reason is trying to make my world smaller, as we talked about.
We got to go into that one a little bit more.
Sure.
But we'll stick with the health part, because I've been experiencing health challenges for many years, but the last 2 years have been particularly more intense with this. And I think when I first learned about 10 years ago, you're probably going to have to go gluten-free and dairy-free, that felt impossible.
Yeah.
Like, that felt so dramatic. I was in law school in my young 20s living in New Orleans. You could barely,
New Orleans is a tough place for gluten-free, dairy-free.
New Orleans is a tough place, and it would have felt really, really isolating.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I didn't even know how to make a meal that was filling, that was dairy-free, gluten-free. I lost a bunch of weight because I didn't know what to do. I was just having like a ton of spinach with some strawberries. Like, I didn't know what to put on it. And so there can be a large learning curve. And I think some people just have that innate knowing of learning how to attune to their body and learning what foods make them feel good. But most I've ever met don't. And most people that I know who are younger, who care deeply, not all, but most, have had a health challenge, a significant health challenge that has kind of made it feel more dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden you are willing right now, if I'd be totally happy to be dairy-free, gluten-free, I am right now for the rest of my life, if that would help me be healthy.
Yeah.
And that kind of turns up the volume. So then you can start to feel, so when you said attuning your body, some people might not know that phrase. Like, what did that actually look like for you?
Yeah. Well, as you said, the volume gets turned up when you're sick. So for me, when I would eat gluten, when I was sick, I would get really intense, like arthritis pain in my hands. It was so bad I would wake up in the middle of the night because of the pain. And then for nightshades, I was really sensitive to nightshades, so tomatoes and eggplants and pepper. I would get dizzy. So it was really obvious. It was like forced attunement. And now I'm in a better place, so the effects are more subtle, but I'm still, because of the extreme before, I'm more attuned to even more subtle effects now. But yeah, it was impossible to ignore.
Yeah. And I had that experience too, but actually took me a while to connect them. Like, I had really intense fatigue and really intense brain fog and chronic sinus colds, but because they weren't digestive in nature, I didn't know it was food. And I was eating such high quality food. So I was like, it couldn't be that. And then over time, I Actually, I think it took me a few tries to find a doctor who was like, no,
It's food.
this is all connected, and
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to go dairy-free, gluten-free, and things started to get better.
Yeah.
And you realized, and then you would have something again and get really sick. And then once you make the connection, then you can see it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are looking for a playbook with health, often including myself, because it would feel simpler.
Yeah.
But the challenge with that then is it does create kind of a fear mindset. The other thing is it doesn't usually work.
Yes.
And so when you're tuning, what is that like? How does that perspective kind of give you your perspective of what health is?
I think as you've said it is different for everybody, and figuring out what works for you, even certainly with food and what things you can digest and what things make you feel okay, but also with exercise. Like there's the same level of kind of looking for playbooks and what you should be doing exercise wise, but like running might suck for you, so don't run. It's okay. Find the thing that feels good for your body and that you enjoy. Same thing for sleep. Everybody's patterns are different. So I like the framework. It's called SEEDS. So it's 5 things that probably have the most dramatic impact on your health, which is sleep, exercise, environment, diet, and stress.
Love.
So it's within each of those, though, it's different for you. So your exercise, your diet, but I think in terms of the levers to be looking into, those ones are the most helpful.
Yeah. And I think there's an exploration process.
Yeah.
And the attunement means listening. Like it's really what you're doing is you're learning how to listen to your body and translate this really intense pain is connected to what I ate.
Yeah.
And then doing something with that information.
Yeah.
And for me, I've had to learn to be like, to accept when the thing is different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And it changes. So the exercise that worked for me 6 months ago, all of a sudden definitely doesn't.
Yeah.
Because my body's in a sensitive place and things shift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's the attunement never stops. Your body's always changing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you worked in tech. During that time, you also were shifting your relationship with health and with food. And then you took this time off and you had this problem. And then why did you decide to lean in and to create a business?
It's tough to know exactly what's the moment of inertia. I think it does require a bit of ignorance to start something in any field. If you know how difficult it will be, often it feels pretty imposing to start. So, I know it was just kind of not only was it something that I knew would help me personally, I thought it was a business opportunity that there wasn't really a regenerative grocery option in Austin, and especially for being such a health-oriented city, that was I knew there would be an audience beyond just me. Yeah. But it wasn't like a very rational, framework-driven decision. It was more of I want this to exist and I'll make it happen.
Which is something I have heard on this show more in most of the interviews.
Yeah.
Both of those things. It wasn't super thought out. Like I think all of them say that.
Yeah.
It was like, I wanted this to exist. All of a sudden I was like, I should just do this. and then they jumped, not necessarily always with the expectation it was going to become as big as it is or last 20 years or whatever it is for that specific person. But we started it and then I enjoyed it and it was fulfilling me and it was connecting me to community and then it grew from there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It starts to take on a life of its own once the community gets to participate, which is great.
Yeah. And okay, so I want to share this because I think this is super relevant. So the first time I came into contact with Radius and you, it was before it opened. It was November of 2024. And Radius, the location of Radius is at a building that used to house Salt and Thyme, which is a local butcher and restaurant. And I really loved it because they sourced my meat. So when they closed, I was bummed. I was delighted months or however long later when I heard, no, this is actually turning into all the things I liked about Salt and Thyme, but more of them.
Yeah.
I was like, fantastic. And my parents and I were sitting next to each other on a flight to New Zealand, and we were talking about it. And my dad was like, we should just look it up. And so we both pull it up, see Radius, and then I think we both emailed you.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I emailed you to request certain items that I love that I usually had to go across town to get. And I was like, I really hope that they'll source these. And you responded.
Yeah, of course.
And then you responded and were very open to the feedback, which I wasn't expecting because I thought it was kind of like a bold move to just email and be like, will you please have these things that I want? And then not only did you respond, but then at some point later, you sent me a list of all the vendors that you were planning on sourcing and welcomed my feedback, which was, I really like grocery stores. I've read books about them. I just really like food systems. It's a interest and hobby of mine. So I loved getting to look at that list and share that. And it is illustrative of the collaborative approach that you're taking. Tell me about that with your business.
Well, it comes from a place, our first company principle is better every day. And if you're not open to feedback from your customers, you're not going to get better every day. So we take it really seriously when someone asks for a product that they love or has you got a chicken salad jar that wasn't up to our usual standard. We always take it really seriously, and we appreciate feedback because it just helps us get better, which makes our customers happier, which it just makes the business better. And I think it's a core part of hospitality is to accept feedback, even when it might not be. Yours was presented very kindly, but it's not always presented very kindly. But you just have to be calm and appreciate that someone, even if they're not presenting it in the best way, is just deep down is trying to help you improve the experience. So that's, we like feedback. We like suggestions, requests. It's and it's a way to build closer relationships with people too.
So this is something you've mentioned here a little bit. We talked a little bit about offline about this general interest in making your world smaller and prioritizing relationships. And culturally, overall, we're getting more individualistic and also more massive and in that way more anonymous in a lot of ways. And Radius is bringing a lot more intimacy into experiences that used to maybe 100, 200, probably almost always before that, but recently don't. Was that intentional?
Yeah, absolutely. I have this pretty vivid memory. My first job out of college in tech was working at a mobile ad network. And we had, I don't know, several dozen advertiser campaigns running at a time. And I was writing a short programming script to change one of the ad campaigns targeting to target several million different users. And the way it works is on your iPhone, there's it's called a UUID, a unique user ID. And I remember seeing the script run and I was just printing out all of these anonymous UUIDs. And in the back of my head, I was like, if this ad actively in theory, advertising is meant to change behavior. So I just changed, even in a minor way, the behavior of maybe 2 to 3 million people by running a script. And I just see them as anonymous UUIDs. I was like, yikes, that is probably not good. And I remember changing the script to, I still changed the ad targeting, but it had a print statement that said UUID is a person. And it just if you've seen scripts run, you just have millions of rows get printed out. So it's all these different UUIDs is a person, is a person, is a person. And it's one of the few memories that really sticks with me from when I worked at that company. And it's kind of been a subtle guide in my life since then of how do we not be so anonymous. And
why do you think that struck you?
I studied philosophy in school and just spent a lot of time thinking about free will and how we all affect each other. And I personally don't believe individual free will exists. I think we're shaped by our environments and our genetics. And so it all these things kind of fit that same theme. If you're a visual thinker, I'm a visual thinker at least. If you think about a group of people as a network, and each person is a node in that network, so a little circle, and then the relationship between people is an edge, so a line connecting the different circles. And I think a lot of our social systems are focused on, how do I make my circle better? How do I understand myself? And it's a lot about self-knowledge. What I think is more impactful is the edge. Like, what is the relationship between these entities? How do I understand my relationship with a friend or a partner better? Because in a way, we really are just the sum of our relationships. If you didn't have any, you wouldn't exist. Even if you did exist, no one would know you would exist. So it's kind of like, if a tree fell in the forest and no one was around, would you hear the sound? Like, if you didn't have any relationships, do you actually exist? Probably not. And there's some interesting things with quantum physics where properties exist in relationship between two objects rather than an object itself. So a simple example that I use, we have an orange cat. So is the cat orange, or is my relationship to the cat orange? Because if you are a dog, as an example, and you see the cat and you don't see color, that cat isn't orange. That cat is kind of gray. So do properties exist on the relationship between objects or for the object itself? I think it's between objects. So the relationships to me are more interesting, more important than the individual nodes. So that got kind of esoteric, but
I loved. And I like it so much because it's just an ongoing question I've been having for myself of not just for myself. In my work, I do spiritual and emotional healing work, and that's essentially how to create fulfilling lives.
Yeah.
Like, that's really all that inquiry is. It's a little bit more specific in the sense of how to, process difficult experiences that might be preventing you from having a fulfilling life, but that's the directional piece of it.
Yeah.
And because of that and that interest, there is a lot of focus on the individual and self-understanding.
Yeah.
And the way I view it, I think it's similar with the emotional spectrum of, like, if you're trying to forgive somebody, you might need to start with anger or sadness and then anger, but you can't stay there.
Yeah.
Because then you'll just be angry. And if the goal is forgiveness eventually, or acceptance or compassion, you'll keep moving on. And I think it can be similar with living a fulfilling life. There's this part of understanding or exploring the self to a degree, but it really is just in service to the relationship.
Exactly.
It's just in service. So I understand myself enough so I realize what my relationship is with this person, or how I can direct it, or how I can benefit the other person or love them better.
Yeah.
Or see how I might be harming our relationship. It's almost, I think, looking at fulfillment through a lens of relationship honors both, because in relationship, you're still part of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, how does this
Definitely
contributing to my life? But then you're also contributing to the whole, whether it be your family or your community.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've been thinking about a lot since we had our talk about this very brief mention of this discussion yesterday is, what relationships do you want to be focusing and nurturing? And so is it a relationship with anonymous people online? Is it a relationship with millions of people you're doing ads with? Because that is still a relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's time and energy that you're not don't have time for a farmer 100 miles away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And my wife Maytala is in the process of writing she's a psychologist and is in the process of writing a book about, like, through the therapeutic lens, like, what's the best? She would obviously do a better job explaining it than I would, but understanding individualism versus relational health through the therapeutic lens. And throughout modern history, therapy has had both sides, whether it's about exploring your past self and your past traumas, but in service of what? And I like the way that you articulated that it's understanding yourself in service of your relationships. And I think that can get lost. And sometimes it becomes very self-oriented. But for what purpose?
For what?
Yeah.
Because then it's just you and that's not where we get fulfillment. I know that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a big part of Radius, is making my world smaller, is actually making the relationships deeper.
Yeah.
Versus, and when you work at scale, whether it's in law or finance or tech, you can become pretty abstracted away from the people that you have a relationship with.
Yes.
It's very light.
One other thing I just want to flag for listeners is that you had many goals with this, but one of them was to make your world smaller. And this I think what I want to say is you can create any business or project to serve any goal. And it's so cool to me when I meet people like you who are like, I wanted this experience, so then I created it for myself by creating a business that would ensure that I got to have that experience.
Yeah. I think one of the things I struggled with in tech is I was actually never the customer. Versus Radius, I'm the customer. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
When you sent those product recommendations, I was like, would I eat these things? Yeah. Okay, great. We'll do it. So it just makes it more fun because I get to enjoy the business, the products of the business. And it makes it a lot easier because I can make decisions intuitively rather than having to be purely reasoned through.
What are some of the lessons or challenges that you've experienced in your first year as a business that you've learned from?
There's a lot. We've definitely had our fair share of supply chain issues working with local farms. You'll have that. In our first year, the turkey farmer that we were working with, a bobcat killed all their turkeys. It's that was terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, that was terrible for everybody involved. So that's definitely a lesson learned. I'm definitely learning how to manage a hospitality culture, employee culture. It's different than a tech employee culture for sure. So I've had hard lessons learned there, and also to understanding what are the most important levers of the business. And in our business, it's our biggest cost centers are COGS, the products that we're buying, and labor. So making sure that those things are properly managed helps on the path towards profitability. So, but yeah, definitely it's hard to enter any new field with no previous experience or context. And this is certainly no exception to that.
But it's working.
Yeah. I mean, we've been open a little bit more than a year now. And basically every single week this year since January 1st has been an all-time high in sales. So it's great.
That's what it seems like in the
much busier.
Yeah, when I go in there and who's in there and the attention versus in the first few months a year ago.
Which makes sense for every hospitality business. You need to build your loyal customer base.
Is that typical that groceries are considered hospitality?
Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever thought of that.
We think about it that way at least. Yeah.
I love that. And you can feel the difference within that. It
Yeah.
feels much more hospitable in that way. So one thing I want to make sure that we have time to talk about is the cost.
Yeah.
Just briefly, how did you finance the business?
Yeah, personally.
Yeah.
It's the benefit of working in tech, I guess.
Yeah. And so why did you decide that this was worth your personal investment?
I think for all the reasons mentioned before around wanting this product to exist, wanting to make my world smaller, and really caring about health.
I love it when I meet people who've self-financed.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool because what a great use of money.
A lot of skin in the game, that's for sure.
A lot of skin in the game. Yeah. And it's just a commitment and it's creating that experience for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think money, one way to think about money is it creates opportunities and experiences for ourselves. And that's a really unique experience to give yourself and to give me and all of us. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So then second question is, people come in there and the prices will be higher than a traditional grocery store.
Yeah.
And there's reasons that you already discussed for that, such as it's harder to scale. You can talk about those more
Sure.
if you want to.
Yeah. Our prices are dependent on our costs, and our two biggest cost centers are the products themselves, so what we're paying to farmers, and labor. So for us to reduce our costs, for us to reduce our prices, we would need to reduce our costs in those areas, which we don't want to do that. We certainly want to reduce our costs as a percentage of revenue, but we don't want to push the cost down for what we're paying to farmers. That's not the goal. And that's kind of the blessing and curse of the food system is you bring down prices as scale increases because you have economies of scale. So working with small family farms, they don't have economies of scale. That's not the way. They might have a few acres of produce, and that's not large scale. Versus Whole Foods is buying spinach from a place that has hundreds or thousands of acres of planted spinach. So when it comes to cost, it's higher because our inputs are higher, and we do employ a pricing strategy that we want to make our products accessible. So for beef, as an example, we get whole carcasses. And for the premium cuts like filet mignon and ribeye and New York strips, we do bump those prices up higher because they're going to sell out no matter what. And we use that revenue to subsidize the price of things like ground beef. So our ground beef is $11 a pound for local grass-fed and finished Wagyu beef. It's
so good.
It's incredible. It's the best ground beef you're going to get.
Yeah.
And at $11 a pound, it's actually comparable to what you would get at H-E-B. So yes, in aggregate, our prices are higher because we're supporting family farms that have smaller scale. We're supporting our employees. But we use that to still make at least a good portion of our products more accessible.
Yeah. And there's something you said I'll kind of repeat here, which is that nobody's getting rich off of this. Sometimes.
Yeah, certainly the farmers are getting by. They're not getting rich.
This is unfortunately how much it costs.
Yeah.
And there's a bigger policy issue. We can talk about the Farm Bill and go into like why it is like this.
Yeah.
That could change over time.
It would be incredible if soy was no longer subsidized and regenerative farming was. So the price of grain-fed beef is artificially low because of subsidies. So you're competing against things that are, unfair competition. Yeah. But hopefully that would change. That would be incredible.
Why do you remember a time when you decided, okay, this is worth, some products like the beef is similar price. Other products like the chicken is maybe double what it would be at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Do you remember personally when you decided as a consumer that was worth it for you?
Well, yes, I do. That's a great question. It was going to farmers markets because our prices are farmers market prices. So if you're comfortable paying the price for chicken at a farmer's market, you'll be comfortable paying the price at Radius. That said, our chicken is very special. We have partnered with a local farm to raise slow growth genetic birds for us. As you're alluding to with the warehouse chicken, oftentimes the birds can't move around. That's because of the space, but also because of their genetics. Most chicken in America is Cornish cross, and they grow very quickly from a young age. So their bones and immune system doesn't develop very well. And once they get to harvest age, which is 5 weeks, which is wild, they can't actually walk around because of that. Versus the breeds that we source, which is Red Bro and Pioneer, they have a slow growth curve. So they'll actually develop bones and immune system early and then start putting on muscle weight later. So their grow out period is longer. So it's a special chicken. Even that type of chicken would be very difficult to find at a farmer's market. Most farmers, regardless of whether it's commercial or family farm size, raise some type of Cornish cross.
It's just in general harder to find chickens at farmer's market depending on the time of the year. Yeah, so it's awesome to be able to go and to get chicken like every week.
Yeah. And even like the eggs that we have are the best eggs.
They're so good.
It's insane.
They're crazy.
And I really like the expression, you are what you eat eats. So when it comes to chicken eggs, they're really important what diet the hens are being fed. So we work with a few different farms. Origin Ranch and Freedom are two ones where they take the feed quality and ingredient composition really seriously. So it's low omega-6s. In most marketing, you'll see low PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, but that is both omega-3 and omega-6. And actually, omega-3s are good for you. They help reduce inflammation, while omega-6 can be harmful for you. And you really want to look at the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. You want something like ideally a 1-to-1. I think the average American diet's like 20-to-1. So in chicken eggs, the closer you can get to 1-to-1 is almost impossible, but 3-to-1, 4-to-1 is really quite good. So you avoid ingredients that would have a high omega-6 level. So soy and corn are the main culprits there. So the eggs that we get, the hens, are soy-free, corn-free, peanut-free, and flax-free. And then they are given a custom blend that includes fish meal, and these two farms also hunt wild game, and the hens are given the carcasses from the wild game.
So what, I don't know if you know offhand, but I just tried these new eggs. I love all the eggs there, but I just got these new ones that the box is a different shape. It's like 4 across.
Origin Ranch,
They're
insane.
So good.
They're really good. Yeah.
They're so good. They're almost like delicate, like the outside is delicate, and I've been cooking them in beef tallow.
Oh, nice.
And it's been so good. And I hadn't seen them before till like 2 weeks ago. And so I was asking.
They sell out very quickly.
That's what I heard. I was asking one of your associates, and she just immediately told me everything about it. And I'm like, this is my dream. I love it here.
It's amazing. So and I think this goes back to we do go into pretty insane, like very deep level of detail, and trying to be making sure that's a place of joy, not fear. Yes, I do care about omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, but also the eggs are insanely good. It's like eating custard. It's so cool.
Exactly. And to this kind of point earlier of, it is important to know these because it's why we're doing this. Like, that's why I care about this. That's why you care about this. These important to know. I mean, the omega-6 and these different health things, but it's not why you stay.
Yeah.
Like, it's not when I crack the egg that I'm like, oh, I'm sure that the omega-3s in here are crazy. It's like, this color is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I feel so vibrant. And I want to speak to this. And, I don't usually, actually that's not true, but I don't always ask a guest about why their products are expensive. But the reason I do here and did just now is because whenever I talk about these, I made a video on TikTok about Radius like last week or 2 weeks ago, just because I love it. And it's one of the first questions anyone asks.
Yeah.
And you hear that question a lot, and people, it's the question. It's the natural question.
Yeah, it's reasonable too.
It's a reasonable question to ask, and it does change your budget when you start going there as your main grocery store, definitely. Which you don't have to, but
yeah, of course, yeah. And it's expensive compared to what? Compared to Whole Foods, slightly. Compared to H-E-B's certainly, but it's much cheaper than going out to eat. The ingredients that we source are Michelin star ingredients. Most of the any farm-to-table Michelin star restaurant in Austin is sourcing from the same farms that we do. So a meal for two at a Michelin star restaurant is probably going to be $200 at least, versus you're able to cook a meal for two with Radius ingredients for anywhere from $15 to $40. So it's at least a quarter the price of going out to fine dining. It's probably half the price of going out to a place that doesn't have good ingredients. So yes, our products are more expensive than the grocery store, but they're significantly cheaper than going out.
The way I think about it, thank you for sharing that. And I agree. And the way that I think about it, and just personally how I made that transition for myself, because it didn't happen immediately. It took many years to kind of just get used to it and decide that it was important and make that a big part of my life. And it started with just learning about these things and, like I said, almost 15 years ago. And then probably about 7 years ago, I really started to shop different. And I would go to the farmer's market like a few times a month.
Yeah.
And I would just buy it there, but I love that. And I started to notice how it made me feel. And then, of course, now there's just the health implications are just different, and it kind of requires it in a different way. And I think about it like the cost of all the doctors that I see and all the health bills and how this all of a sudden feels a lot less expensive than taking 20 supplements every
100%.
month.
Yeah.
And all of the cost of the large-term health implications. There's a quote I love, and I don't know who said it, but it's along the lines of the cost of anything is the amount of life given up for it.
Yeah.
And I think the inverse of that is the benefit of anything is the life received from it.
Definitely.
And the life that I receive, that energetically, the vitality, the joy is so high that what a great use of my money. Like, to me, it's interesting because there is kind of like a cultural, social, like, tightness, but people wouldn't say that if you said I was buying a bottle of wine every other day.
Yeah, that's true.
And they wouldn't say it about going out to restaurants that might not have quality food, but also could cost a lot of money. And they wouldn't say it about vacations. Like, I take this big vacation every year. And we all get to spend our money however we want to.
Totally.
And everyone gets to do that. And the way I like to do mine is spend it. To me, it feels like what an incredible use of my money, and what a way to make my life feel healthy and beautiful and joyful every day. And it also happens to align with what I stand for, which to me is one of the biggest and best uses of money, is for it to support something that you stand for in the world. Yeah,
I completely agree. And the goal is to grow. And when you can grow, your prices come down.
Yeah.
So even Whole Foods, of course, now they're owned by Amazon, so prices are much lower than they were before. But Whole Foods 20 years ago was critiqued for being whole paycheck.
Absolutely.
And now their prices are like Walmart price. It's wild. So I want this quality of food to be accessible.
Yes.
It does take time to get there. It's just the unfortunate realism of the where we're at. But you should also feel good that most of that money is going to farmers.
Yeah.
I think there's some stat that 8% of 8% of a purchase at a grocery store will go to the farmer because there's a lot of middlemen in there, versus for us it's about 50%.
Which is so amazing.
So it's going to a good place.
Yeah. And I should just say, in addition to like everything I just said, that it isn't accessible to a lot of people, or it's accessible. It just simply is an option to go there as your main grocery store. And that's such a privilege if it is. But it's something worth exploring.
I think so. And we also, one last thing on the price, we do accept SNAP, and we're part of the Double Up program. So if you're using SNAP at Radius and you're buying produce, it's half price. So we spend a lot of time making this food accessible. It's important to us.
What is your vision for Radius?
Hopefully we can open multiple locations in Austin, and the end goal is to build a regenerative regional food system for Texas, starting in Central Texas, and from there. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm. My last two questions for you.
Sure.
I ask everybody this. What do you offer Austin?
Food. That's the easy answer. I mean, it's funny going to like parties or birthday parties, whatever it might be, and be like, "Oh my God, you're the Radius guy! I love that place." So it's kind of nice. But yeah, food and joy for food, it would be the simple answer.
What does Austin offer you?
I think the realism answer is Austin is, for better or worse, I think the health capital of America. There's a lot of people thinking about our food systems and healthcare systems and environment. So there's absolutely a health-oriented community that supports Radius, which is great. It can get annoying. I'm not going to deny that. I think there can be, again, going back to the fear versus joy, I think there can be a lot of fear from that. And hopefully the joy will start to balance that out. But yeah, the health community here is very, very supportive, which is great. And my wife too, most importantly.
Thank you so much for joining me here.
Yeah, thanks for hosting me.
Where is Radius located?
It's on the east side, 1912 East 7th Street at 7th and Chacon.
Yes. And where can they follow you on Instagram?
Sure. Our handle is eatradius. Just eatradius, EATRADIUS. And same with our website. Everything is eatradius.
Thank you so much for joining me here. And thanks for sharing with us. This is the Artist Rendezvous. My name is Samantha Votenhauer. Make sure you share this episode with someone who will enjoy it. Go visit Radius, especially if you're in Austin or visiting Austin. Learn about your local food systems. If you're not here, go see a farmer's market. See if there's a butcher or a local grocery store. These are really important and they deserve and need our support. Make sure you follow along at the Artist Rendezvous on Instagram and on YouTube. Share this with a friend, leave a review, and thank you so much for being here.